In the coming decades, the United States, Russia and China will remain focused on three key areas of interest in Latin America: natural resources, bilateral trade and arms sales. Although the continent is in the US geopolitical sphere of influence, China is actively increasing its economic presence, and Russia is seeking to capitalize on anti-US sentiment in the region that will allow the Kremlin to build profitable trade relationships to bolster the weak Russian economy. I'm your host Kasim, and thanks for joining me for another KJ vid. In this video we will discuss Russia's interests in Latin America. I'd also like to take this opportunity to encourage you to visit our website kjvids.co.uk and sign up to our subscription plan, which will give you unlimited access to our content and the full transcripts of all of our video reports and a lot more analysis. The continued US dependence on oil imports from the politically volatile Middle East has increased the strategic and economic importance of Latin American natural resources to the United States. After the recent US-sponsored coup d'etat in Bolivia, Washington's troubled position in the region seems a lot stronger. Should the interim president of Bolivia, Jeanine Áñez, remain in power for a lengthy period, Russia could suddenly find itself on the back foot in South America. Over the past decade, Russia's relations with Bolivia have seen the Kremlin benefit from increased exploration of Bolivian natural resources. Rosatom Corporation, the Russian state's nuclear monopoly, got a contract to build a $300 million nuclear center near La Paz, the Bolivian capital, and began negotiating a concession to develop Bolivia's large lithium reserves. Also, Gazprom, the Russian state-controlled natural gas company, has been present in Bolivia since 2010. After the coup, it is the US rather than Russia and China that will have the opportunity to exploit Bolivia's lithium reserves. Lithium is undoubtedly important to the future economy, as it is one of the key components in lithium-ion batteries that powers everything from laptops to electric cars. Apart from Bolivia, Chile and Argentina also have significant reserves of this alkali metal. Reportedly, lithium reserves in those two countries have a far higher quality, and unlike Bolivia, the two neighbouring nations have more favourable climatic conditions for lithium mining. It is worth mentioning that Chile and Argentina are both allies of the United States. Also, Russia already recognized Bolivia's interim leader, which can be interpreted either as another sign of Russian weakness or as a part of a secret deal between Moscow and Washington. In any case, in 2024, the Russian President Vladimir Putin will face the same choice that the ousted Bolivian President Evo Morales faced in 2019, to obey the constitutional term limit or to sweep it aside and try to keep power. In the meantime, the Kremlin will attempt to keep its presence in South America, especially in countries like Venezuela, Cuba and Nicaragua. On the surface, Russia and Venezuela are touting a strong relationship based on multipolarity, the idea that no one country reigns supreme in the world. For Venezuela, this means preventing the United States from having control over its internal affairs. For Russia, it means control over Venezuela's energy resources and oil trade. The Russian state-owned oil company Rosneft has become Venezuela's largest oil trader, taking 66% of petroleum of Venezuelan oil exports in August 2019, up from 44% in July. Rosneft has invested billions into Venezuelan projects, $9 billion alone since 2010, in hopes of a titanic return on investment. The company also holds minority stakes in 5 oil ventures with Petroleum of Venezuela, and Russians have a sizable stake in Citgo, Petroleum of Venezuela's oil refiner and gasoline station. Rosneft is already sanctioned by the United States, and the American Treasury Department could easily make life more difficult for Rosneft to own Citgo assets in the US. It is interesting that some members of Rosneft's board of directors are people like Gerhard Schroeder, who served as a Chancellor of Germany since 1998 till 2005, Guillermo Quintero, who is one of the regional presidents of the British Petroleum, and Robert Dudley, who is a member of the board of directors of BP. According to Rosneft's 2018 financial statements, Venezuela's outstanding debt to this company was $2.6 billion as of December 31, 2018. As of July 2019, Venezuela currently owes $10 billion for the purchase of 36 Russian Su-30 Mk2 fighter jets and $1.1 billion for Rosneft's investments into the Venezuelan oil field development. By 2013, Rosborno Export, Russia's official arms exporter, had sold around $11 billion of weapons to Venezuela on credit. Caracas has also received more than $4 billion of investment from Russia, according to the Russian Economic Development Ministry. According to Agath Demarais, Global Forecasting Director for the Economic Intelligence Unit in London, regime change in Venezuela could lead to substantial financial losses for Russia, as a new Venezuelan government is likely to write down sovereign and quasi-sovereign debts, as well as Rosneft's participation in joint oil ventures with the petroleum of Venezuela. In contrast with Syria, which hosts Russian military bases and lies on the periphery of Russia's sphere of interests, Venezuela has limited strategic significance for Moscow. The Venezuelan deployments are difficult to support logistically, and Moscow's ability to deploy conventional forces in the Western Hemisphere cannot compare to US capabilities. If the United States were to send its military to oust Maduro, there is little Russia could do about it. By solidifying relations with Venezuela and other Latin American countries, Russia has gained strategic access to Latin American ports and other important infrastructure, including Russia's GLONASS satellite station, which is planted strategically on Nicaraguan soil. GLONASS, a global navigation satellite system, is a space-based satellite navigation system operating as part of a radio navigation satellite service. It provides an alternative to GPS and is the second navigational system in operation with global coverage and of comparable precision. Apart from this project, Russia is interested in Nicaragua's rich natural resources, most of which have not been exploited on a large scale due to a lack of financing. Mineral resources in the country include known deposits of gold, silver, zinc, copper, iron ore, lead and gypsum. Of these minerals, only gold has been mined intensively. Nicaragua also has the largest geothermal potential in Central America. According to the National Interest magazine, decades ago, Cuba was Moscow's closest ally in the Western Hemisphere. Now, Russia's most stable and closest friend in the region is arguably Nicaragua. While Venezuela has nearly collapsed financially and Cuba improved its relations with the United States to a certain extent, President José Daniel Ortega's legislature has emerged as Russia's most steady ideological ally in the hemisphere. However, today's Russia, unlike the Soviet Union, is not guided strictly by ideological imperatives when it comes to opening or improving relations in Latin America. For the Kremlin, as well as for the United States or any other major power, energy resources are much more important than any ideology. In comparison with the United States and Europe, Russia does not have an imperial past with respect to the countries of the Americas. Russia is also incapable of competing with the Chinese power, as it lacks the economic muscle to wield the same influence as Beijing already has in many Latin American countries. Russia's engagement in Latin America could be seen in the context of China's growing role in the region. While the United States remains Latin America's most significant trade partner, trade with China is rising rapidly. Still, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Cuba, Peru and Brazil are likely to remain Moscow's main military partners in this part of the world. In the foreseeable future, Russia is expected to attempt to gain greater control over Latin America's vast oil and natural gas reserves, which it can use as an economic weapon to influence US, Chinese and OPEC policy and global energy prices. That's all for today guys, thanks for watching another KJ vid. We hope you enjoyed the video and would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, especially if you are from Latin America. Please don't forget to visit our website kjvids.co.uk and subscribe to one of our plans which will give you unlimited access to our content. Thanks for watching again and see you next time.